you can see we've got our bulbs all packed in soil to keep them super fresh. They're really lovely and firm. So when you get them your end, if you're not going to plant them straight away, I do recommend that you do the same and just pack them into some compost straight from the bag. I will show you some information on that. But the other good thing to note is that it's freezing outside, so you might not fancy going out and planting them in the garden or planting them into big containers. So we can do exactly what we've been doing with the Anemones and Ranunculus and Butterfly Ranunculus. We can start them off in smaller pots. Isn't that fantastic? It's actually what the professionals do. They always start them off first, and then once they have started shooting, they will then move them to their final flowering positions. So there's no need to go out in the cold. If you've got your Roselily bulbs, we will do a little grow along, exactly the same, and start them off in pots first. As soon as you receive your bulbs, if you can take them out of the packaging, and you want to make sure that you don't let them dry out. So you can just pop them up straight away, and we'll cover that in a second. But if you haven't got time, or you've bought loads of bulbs, then my recommendation is that you nestle them into some dry compost. This pot is not big enough to start them off, so don't leave them in a pot this small and then water it, because they will end up crashing into each other. But if you're not ready to straight away start your bulbs, cover them with compost, dry compost, and that is how we received them when they were delivered to us. And what this compost will do, you see it's not completely dry, it's just come straight out of the bag, and what that will do is that will stop the bulbs drying out and just keep enough moisture around the bulb, but not so much that they end up waking up. There we go, and a bit more. Now, if they do accidentally wake up, at least they're in the right place. Keep an eye on them, and if they accidentally wake up before you're ready, then you can just rescue them and then move them to their own containers, which is important. Here I've got a 1 litre container. This container is 12 centimetres deep, so nothing more shallow than that, and across the top it is 11 centimetres. And this container, doesn't matter what size you use or what shape, this container is going to be big enough that I can put compost in the bottom to nestle the bulb, and then compost all around the outside and enough over the top to completely bury the bulb. That's very important. Let's start by putting our compost in, and I'll make a little impression for my bulb to sit in. Then I'm going to fill my container not quite to the top. I'm going to leave a little bit of space, and that's for water. So once you add water to the compost, you'll make the compost swell, and if it's all the way to the brim, that compost will then just pour over the edges and make a mess. So just leave, it's called a watering gap. So when you come to do your final planting, do the same thing in your containers. Leave a little gap which is just there for the water. To start your bulbs straight away, this is now ready for watering. As soon as you start watering this bulb, it will wake up. That's its trigger. So if you're not ready to start them straight away, then you need to put this somewhere cool and dark. But keep an eye on them. If they get any moisture in them, or they get too warm, they will end up waking up on their own. They're in the right place, so you can immediately start watering them. But leave them in dry compost if you're not ready to start them straight away. That will keep the bulb nice and moist. Okay, so let's give this a watering in now. And I can see that the compost is dropping just a little bit as it settles all around the bulb. So I will just give it a little topping up, just to make sure I keep everything buried. And that should be enough to start your bulbs off. I'll check it tomorrow and just make sure that there are no dry spots in the compost, and if necessary I'll give it a little bit more water, but that should be enough now to start the bulb off. Just keep it out of direct sunlight, because that can really dry the compost out, and you don't want to wake the bulb up too quickly. You want it to wake up in its own time. You don't want it to panic. So under the stage, shading, or straight outside in a sheltered spot. Just protect it from downpours. You don't want the rain to come and literally wash all of the compost away and drown your bulb. So here we have my overwintered pots. So if you don't have a polytunnel like this to put them in to keep them dry, just turn the pot on its side, and then all the rainwater will hit the edge and it won't go in the pot. and then you can stop the bulbs from getting waterlogged, because that's what's going to make them rot, because they're asleep. They're just like dahlias. Because they're sleeping, there's no way for them to get rid of the water. So I've just put them where there's a cover. Outside will be fine, on the terrace will be fine, on their side in this pot will be fine. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to turn them out. But look, I can already feel how firm they are. They are ready, they're primed to wake up. Anyway, I'll leave them where they are for now. So here I have got my bulbs. So whether you're going to start them off in containers or plant them in the ground, it's best just to look at them in their raw state. Now, these are Roselily bulbs. So the roots at the bottom, some have got more roots than others. Some haven't got any at all yet. They'll grow some. They're not actually that important. They create stem roots which come from above the bulb, which is why the depth is so important. So when planting, you can see most people say plant them 3 times the depth. Well, that can get quite confusing because some of them have got quite a bit at the bottom and some have got nothing at all. Does that mean that you plant them a bit closer? No. What it means is that you need to give them about 15 centimetres on top. So roughly, that's roughly about 15 centimetres. So you can't go wrong with the rule of 15. 15 centimetres of soil on top of the bulb, if it's planted raw like this, or on top of the bulb in its pot. So it'll be only a little bit shallow in its pot. So maybe take away 1 or 2 centimetres, so at least 13 centimetres. But if you go for 15 centimetres on top, you're guaranteed to have enough of the stem covered below the soil surface for those stem roots to appear. So the stem roots, the plant will put up a big stem here, and all the way up that stem there will be nodes. They will swell and they will create the roots which will feed the bulb with water and nutrients. Not these roots down here, they're going to be new roots. So if you don't plant your bulb deep enough, let's take it down here, what will happen is the stem will come up and then all of a sudden you'll see little white swollen nodes all the way up the stem and you'll think that you've got some kind of a disease. And all it is the stem roots are dormant and they're not able to wake up because they don't have any compost around them. So in that case, if you've forgotten, in that case, then you need to fill your pot up back to the rule of 15 centimetres. That will cover the stem roots up and then they can grow and then feed and water your bulb. They won't grow very well at all without this nice depth. I thought I'd just take one for the team. So I popped these bulbs just in doors in the box just for 2 or 3 days, and look how much they've dried out. They will be fine, they'll be absolutely fine, but look how much they've dried out just in those couple of days in the central heating. So we're keeping them in tip-top condition, so when you get them your end, you need to do the same. They're just like a dahlia. A dahlia will dry out if you leave them indoors in their boxes as well. So you just need to look after them because they're alive. They are alive. So we have to give them just a little bit of respect. These bulbs are absolutely fine in their bag, in their box, in the summer house where there's no heating for a couple of weeks. They were fine. But indoors, no chance. Don't do that. Now here you can see what a tiny splash of water will do. As soon as you start watering your rose lily, even accidentally, they will burst into life. I'm alive! So that's all you need to do to get them started, give them a nice drink. This has only had a tiny splash, so we've only got a few little leaves. So I want to change the container, so I need to get a wriggle on and do that, and then I'll give them a really good deep drench, and that will get the whole bulb to wake up. And then this is a good example to show you, if you don't make sure that the pot's completely moist all the way around, you won't get all the shoots to wake up. So you water it, come back the next day, check for any dry spots. If you've got any, give them another water, and then that should be enough. They really don't take very much. You can see, look how dry the compost is. But that splash of water was enough to start the process. So once you started them, then there's no stopping them.
just snuck out for a second. I thought I'd show you how pretty everything's looking. Look at those hollyhocks, they're just glowing. And I've got some lovely lilies here on trial.